I was told this years ago by a coach who'd been in the league 30 plus years, and a highly respected coach, and he told me that coaches coach against coaches. And I think this is a great coaching matchup of two veterans who are really good at what they do, Josh McDaniels and Todd Bowles.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Finish Strong Friday presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. That means we've got the latest news to get to. We've got part 2 of the NFL Films legend, Greg Cosell, and a lot of good games to get to today. And we have to talk about last night's game. Yes, we have to talk about last night's game. Honestly, one of the worst games I've ever watched. But we'll get to that a little bit later. First, it's our guy Greg Cosell. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
You know, it's funny, Greg, just the way the schedule worked out yesterday. We talked a lot about a lot of the different guys that had been traded and some of the early games, but most of the juicier games, most of the more exciting games are the later games and the primetime games. There is, I would say, the marquee 1 o'clock game, which we didn't get to yesterday. It's the Patriots and the Bucks. Now, Bucks are coming off of a bye, and they still have some of their guys are not practicing. Some of their skill guys like Godwin, Bucky Irving. So that's something to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, the Patriots, they just keep finding a way, Greg. Really curious to get your breakdown, maybe both sides of this intriguing matchup.
I want to start with the Patriots O and the Bucks D, because I view this, I was told this years ago by a coach who'd been in the league 30 plus years, and a highly respected coach, and he told me that coaches coach against coaches. And I think this is a great coaching matchup of two veterans who are really good at what they do, Josh McDaniels and Todd Bowles, because we know, you and I, that Drake May is going to see pressure concepts that he's not seen before in the NFL this week when he plays against Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles uses defensive backs as blitzers at a higher percentage than any team in the league, and he does an unbelievable job of understanding how offenses protect based on how he lines up his defensive fronts. And he gets more free hitters to the quarterback, I think, than maybe any team in the league. And I think this is going to be one of those games. Josh McDaniels, who's been around a long time and knows Todd Bowles and is great at his job, versus Bowles, who's great at his job. And I look at this game as a coaches versus coaches game, and Drake May will see things he's not seen before.
It's so funny, Greg. Sometimes I wish, and I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes I wish coaches would ask me, and I'm sure they ask offensive linemen, and I'm sure they ask offensive line coaches, but the reality is, Greg, when you're the center and you go up to the line of scrimmage, let's say it's a 6-man protection, the 5 offensive linemen and the running back.
Yep.
You're really not accounting for third-level blitzers.
Right.
You're really accounting for the first and second level. So, whether it's, hey, we got these 4 D linemen and these 2 linebackers most dangerous. We got these 4 and that guy. You're most dangerous on the other 2, and the back knows what he has. Now, backs can scan, meaning if their linebacker responsibility doesn't come, they can scan the other side and try to hunt up a DB. But my point would be, you're not accounting. I mean, you are accounting for the nickel in obvious passing situations most of the time, but you're not really accounting for corner blitzes or safety blitzes.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense to me to bring blitzers that are not part of the count, that the offensive line and running back are not responsible for. That makes all the sense in the world. I mean, if you can cover for it, or you can put extra DBs out there and you can still get that zone covered, absolutely bring third level defenders because nobody's even supposed to block them.
No, and the thing that a lot of people sometimes forget is protection gets set, okay? It's just like you said. However you choose to set your protection based on the protection call and then the front you're looking at. And you can't change the call in the middle of the play. Maybe you hope that a guard can react if he sees a guy and all of a sudden he's uncovered or his guy drops out and maybe he can react. But the call itself is the call. You can't change the call. Because I know a lot of people think, oh, well, why didn't the guard or the tackle do this? Because those two guys dropped out. But those two guys, you didn't know they were going to drop out. You're not going to have a protection call where you don't block, let's say, a defensive tackle and a defensive end. You don't know they're going to drop out.
It's a really, really good point. And especially the later in the down you go, the later in the play clock, the less chance you have to try to adjust it. Any thought? People really haven't talked about the Patriots defense very much. Any thoughts on the Patriots D against the Bucs O?
I think it's been really just one of, with Vrabel, it's always solid. One of my favorite players, and I think he's a really good player. My guess is he's probably foundationally the guy that runs the defense is Robert Spillane. I think he's a really, really good player, probably not a well-known player. And they've got two really good corners. And I think that allows you to do a lot of things with Gonzalez and Davis. And I think that, and the rookie safety has really been a revelation. And I remember evaluating him coming out of Cal, Woodson. He's played really, really well. That's the reason they just traded Duggar, because Duggar couldn't get on the field because Woodson has essentially been the starter from day one.
And I'll add to that, Marcus Jones is a good nickel, too.
He's a really good nickel. You're right about that. Yeah.
You know what's got to be so frustrating for, Raiders fans, speaking of the Raiders, who played last night? They had Spillane.
Yeah.
And they loved Spillane.
He's so good.
That Spillane is a core guy.
He's a core guy.
You don't lose those guys.
I don't want to compare him to a Hall of Famer, but stylistically, and I hope people can understand where I'm coming from. Stylistically, in the way in which he plays, he reminds me of Zach Thomas.
Ooh.
And again, I don't want people to say you're nuts. He's not all. That's not my point. I think you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, of course. The style of play.
Yeah.
All right. What about the Arizona Cardinals and the Seahawks? We talked a little bit about the Seahawks yesterday with the Shaheed trade. And then I talked later on in the show about Kyler Murray going on IR. I mean, basically, Greg, everybody you talk to says the offense just functions better with Brissett.
Because Brissett has a much better sense of timing and rhythm in the pass game. Now, Brissett's always had his own set of issues. There are times he clearly gets stuck in the pocket. That's one reason he's never been a full-time starter. But overall, there's no real consistency when Murray plays to a pass game because he doesn't have a refined sense of timing and anticipation. So his best games usually come about when he makes plays outside of structure. But as you and I both know, you can't live like that in the league. But I think one thing we need to talk about, everybody wants to talk about Darnold, and certainly this week with Rashid going there, that's been the focus. But this is a very good Seahawks defense. A very good Seahawks defense. Their D-line has been playing really well. Byron Murphy, in his second year, is becoming the player they anticipated when they drafted him in the first round. We know about Leonard Williams and his multi-positional versatility at D-tackle and the end. The secondary, they've gotten really good play, and this is what you hope for. Julian Love went on IR. So they've been playing Ty Akata, and I don't even know if he was drafted, but he has played really well at safety for them. And, that's what you hope when your frontline guys get hurt, if someone can step in and you don't have to change what you're doing. And their defense is very, very good.
Greg, this is one of the things I love about you. I don't even know who that guy is. He's
a really good player.
What's funny, Greg? No one's going to believe that the Seahawks can go far in the playoffs until they see it because Sam Darnold's their quarterback. It's kind of like the same thing with the Colts in the AFC. Yeah. People are not, no matter how well they play in the regular season, people are not going to buy the Seahawks until Darnold does it in the postseason, especially because of how he played those last two games last year.
Yeah, there's two AFC quarterbacks that people are just waiting for the I told you so's, and one is Darnold and the other is Daniel Jones. So now we're waiting. After last week, you're getting a lot of, oh, well, Jones is Jones again. I mean, you know how that works. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't deal in that world, as you know.
But you're a believer in Darnold.
Well, I'm a believer in Darnold in this system. And just like I believed in the system he was in with Kevin O'Connell, Darnold is really good at certain things and has limitations in other areas. So what happens is you try to get him in a system that accentuates what he does really well. Now, could there be a game where he's forced to drop back 50 times and as a true drop back shotgun player, he is not as good at that, where he has to sort of read the field? He's not as good at that as he is, let's say, in a play action pass game where it's more defined and he can drive the ball down the field with clarity. So there might be games that plays out differently. But he's a good football player, and by the way, he's got really high level traits when you watch him. I mean, I've just been noticing that more and more.
Don't go anywhere. Got to pay some bills real quick. I've been telling you guys about the workwear from Brunt. You know how I know it's awesome? I have a pair. You know how else I know it's awesome? Jack got a pair. I don't know if Jack really needs him to be a podcast producer, but he's been raving about him. He loves. In fact, Jack, don't let me forget. Next week, let's show yours off on camera so everybody can check them out. With temps dropping and the holidays coming up, it's time to treat yourself or the hardworking man in your life to real comfort. Skip the throwaway gifts and get him or yourself something built to last. Brunt Workwear. Our listeners, which is very cool, get $10 off their entire order with the code Ross at checkout. That's Brunt, B-R-U-N-T, workwear.com. Use code Ross, order today, and let them know you heard it here on the show. Cannot emphasize enough how cool the merch is at rewards.labattusa.com. Even if you're not a regular or loyal Labatt or Labatt Blue Light drinker right now, go to rewards.labattusa.com to see all the different types of merch. I told you guys a million times, the cooler backpack has been a life changer for me. Life changer. It might even just give you ideas for things you want to buy, even if you're not a Labatt person, but you should be. Rewards.labattusa.com. Rewards.labattusa.com. Buy beer and get gear. Let's talk Rams Niners. I was there October 2nd, Thursday night game, overtime game, awesome game that the Niners found a way to pull out. Now the game is in San Francisco. What do you got on Niners Rams, Greg?
Yeah, I think the big deal here is the Niners. Two things have to really happen, I think, for the Niners to really play well. Number one, their run game has to be a big factor, as it was a week ago against the Giants. That's their foundation. Everything works off that. They are so multiple, so diverse with their run game, their use of formations, motions, shifts, all kinds of pre-snap movement. They're among the league leaders in the percentage that they do that. And the other factor, and this is a major concern for them, is they do not really have a pass rusher on their defensive front. And I don't know what Robert Saleh's plan is going to be. He's normally not a high percentage blitzer, but you and I both know that if you let Matthew Stafford sit there in the pocket, and he may be playing as good a football as he's ever played in his career. So if you let him sit there in the pocket, he's going to make throws. I mean, he is as good a thrower as we've seen. So I'm very curious to see what Robert Saleh does on the defensive side of the ball, because they do not have a pass rusher on their defensive front.
That's such a shame. It really, really is. On the other side, Greg, I guess now it kind of just feels like they might leave Mac Jones in there as long as he's playing pretty good. You know, the Purdy injury keeps getting dragged out because, and I kind of get that. Coaches are really hesitant, Greg, to mess with a good thing.
Yeah, and look, both of those quarterbacks fit the Kyle Shanahan offense to a T. It's a highly choreographed offense in which the footwork and the eyes all go together. It's so rhythmic. That's who both of those quarterbacks are. That's the reason they signed Mac Jones in the offseason. He absolutely fits what they do. But if they're going to need to be able to run the ball, control some clock, control the pace and tempo of the game. They're not going to come out tossing it all over the yard. So we'll see. And by the way, they don't want to do that and they don't want to get caught up in a lot of one-on-one matchups with their offensive line, because that 4-man D-line pass rush, if you get into too many pure pass and third and long situations, that's a tough deal.
Greg, do you think Mac Jones is showing enough that he'll be a starter somewhere else next year?
I think Mac Jones is a specific kind of player, and that if you run a certain kind of system, he can be an effective player. But I don't think Mac Jones is a guy you just go, hey, we want Mac Jones. I think you have to, the thing about Shanahan is that system is so precise in what the quarterback is asked to do. I don't want to say it's robotic, but it's closer to that than it is just, hey, sort of, let's get a quarterback that's got a lot of talent. We'll see what happens. So everything is so choreographed, so precise with your footwork, your timing. That's who Mac Jones is. To me, if you think he's more than that, you're going to be disappointed. But he's very good at that.
They drafted a quarterback with a lot of talent in Trey Lance, and it didn't work out
because
he
couldn't deal with the part that we just spoke about, the choreography, the timing, the precision of it. And that is down to a T.
That's so fascinating. It really is. Well, Trey Lance is now with the Chargers. He's Justin Herbert's backup. Chargers play the Steelers Sunday Night Football, fully expecting a bunch of Steelers fans to be at that one. Yeah. They usually are. Probably spending the weekend out. I think a lot of them just moved out there at some point. Anyway, Steelers, Chargers. Greg, I felt so bad last Sunday. I was doing Chargers Titans for CBS. First, Bobby Hart goes down. And by the way, Bobby Hart, they hadn't announced this publicly, but Bobby Hart had basically won the right tackle job. I mean, Bobby Hart was playing better than Pipkins had or Sorrell. So they were just going to leave Bobby Hart out there. He came from off the couch to being the best right tackle they had. He goes down. And then in the same game, Joe Alt goes down again for a second time. Year. Now he's done for the year. It's a shame because I thought the Chargers had a lot of really good things going. Now they got to go against the Steelers edge rushers without those guys.
And that's a concern, because how do you deal with that? Because obviously Watt can win one-on-one. Highsmith can win one-on-one. Herbig can win one-on-one. I mean, now it affects how you play offense. It limits what you can do on offense because you have to account for those guys. And you can't just rely on, Justin Herbert can then run and beat that. Maybe sometimes he can, but that becomes a big concern in this game because just the matchups on the edge do not favor them at all. So whether it's formations, whether it's chips, whether it's keeping tight ends and backs in as primary pass protectors, which reduces the number of eligibles you send out, now all of a sudden it's a big deal in your pass game.
Well, and Herbert's legs have been amazing this year, Greg.
Big factor.
He's rushed for over 50 yards the last 2 games, a bunch of first downs. As a player, I like that he'll lower his shoulder at times to get that extra yard or two. I'm going to put him in the Jackson Dart category where I really question whether or not he's going to make it through the whole year with all the hits that he's taking.
Yeah. Now, he's a big man, but still. But one matchup to look for in this game with Jalen Ramsey essentially now playing safety for the Steelers is they're not a high percentage cover one man coverage defense, but when they do play man coverage versus 11 personnel, look for the matchup of Jalen Ramsey on Oronde Gadsden. And as you know from just doing the Chargers game, he's become a really key piece in that pass game. I think he has 27 or 28 receptions in the last 4 games, and he has really become a factor.
Well, he's basically like a big receiver.
Right.
You can tell his dad was a receiver. I know they called him a tight end at Syracuse.
He went to Syracuse as a wide receiver, basically.
Yeah, he wasn't blocking anybody.
No.
Now, the thing is, Greg, he is 250 pounds. I mean, he's strong, but you can tell he's never really blocked before.
No, and and he'll be taught that. Look, I remember talking with a coach when Tony Gonzalez got to the Chiefs, and they said Tony Gonzalez couldn't block anybody at all. He was a basketball player, great athlete. You can teach a guy to be a good enough blocker. Gadsden will never be George Kittle, and everybody knows that. But you can teach him to be a good enough blocker that you can line him up attached.
Totally agree. And I thought that way about Gonzalez. I told Tony recently that I was impressed. He became a very functional blocker.
Without question, yeah.
Any thoughts on the Steelers' offense, Greg?
I find the Steelers' offense, I'm being totally honest, a little hard to watch. They don't really run the ball exceedingly well. They play a lot of big people. Their pass game is pretty condensed and limited. It's not. There's not a lot to it right now. Now, maybe as the season, halfway through a season, but maybe as the season progresses, there'll become more to it. But right now, there's not a whole lot to it.
Last but definitely not least, Eagles, Packers, Monday night. And I think I want to start, Greg, with the Packers offense because, we all saw what they did against the Steelers in that Sunday night game.
Sure.
And Jordan Love looked like the greatest quarterback in the world. And then a week later, they're playing at home against the Panthers, and they can't score. What? Are you ready to put him in the Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence box?
No, that was a very odd game, Ross. They had 8 possessions. They didn't punt once, and they only scored 13 points, and they had a turnover in the red zone. No, Love's not like that. Love actually did not play poorly in that game. He had one reckless, undisciplined throw, which he hasn't really done much of, but they've now starting to lose receivers. I don't know if Golden's available this week. I don't know if Wicks is available this week. Reed's still not back. Tucker Kraft, who was a major part of their offense, is now out for the season. Although I'm very anxious to see what Musgrave will do. When Musgrave and Kraft came out in the same draft, Musgrave was considered the much better prospect, and Kraft has obviously turned into a really good player. So we'll see. But they've lost a lot of people. Their run game's been a little uneven this year, not what it was exactly a year ago. But Love is really gifted. He's not in that category. He's played, for some reason, Ross, people don't think of Jordan Love that way as a really good player. But I know that Greg Olson, who I think did that game last week, he works really hard at it. I'm sure you know Greg. He's terrific on TV. He thinks Love, based on his study, is a top 5 or 6 quarterback in the league. And I think for the most part, the film shows that he's much closer to that than being an inconsistent, uneven player.
The Tucker Kraft loss is huge.
Huge.
That is huge. They love him. He does so much for them.
And they're a high percentage 12 personnel offense, very high percentage. Now, they like the Fitzpatrick kid. He'll probably, get more snaps because I don't think they'll dramatically go away from what they want to be. But Musgrave's going to be a fascinating guy because he's more straight line explosive than Kraft. Not as good run after catch, but more straight line explosive.
Yeah, Musgrave can run.
Yeah.
He's fast.
Yeah, he can run.
What are you looking for on the other side, Greg, when the Eagles have the ball against the Packers defense?
Well, you know the Eagles really well, Ross, because you do their preseason games, and so you're close there. And when they played 2 weeks ago against the Giants, that was really the Eagles' offensive template. That's how they won a Super Bowl a year ago. Now, they're not going to run for 276 yards every week, but really their offensive template is run game is the foundation. Hurts dropping back less than 30 times in a game, which I think he had 27 dropbacks against the Giants. People forget last year he had 9 or 10 games where he threw for less than 200 yards. He's an incredibly smart player as far as never turning the ball over. That is a very overlooked element to the Eagles. They never play with short fields for the opposing offense. They're just a very smart offense, which obviously starts with your quarterback. But they're not a passing team in a strict sense. So the template against the Giants was really who they are.
Check him out on social media at Greg Cosell. He's the man. Greg, this was awesome. Do you want to do it again in a couple hours on the Dan Patrick Show with me?
For sure. I know. I appreciate you asking me. Absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, I'll be there.
All right, let's dive into the news. But first, how many of you guys are going to join me on Monday night at Lambeau Field? Eagles, Packers, going to be epic. Get your tickets on the Game Time app. That way you know you're getting the lowest price guarantee. You can see a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy it. And the fees are included. No funny business with these surprise fees at checkout that I can't stand. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ROSS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code ROSS for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today and make sure you use that code ROSS so you get the $20 off. That's huge. Guy Fieri's got culinary chaos on his Christmas list. Don't miss the brand new series, Tournament of Champions All-Star Christmas on Food Network. For the first time ever, superstar chef duos will go head-to-head in high-pressure, high-flavor matchups, all for charity. Get ready as game day intensity meets holiday heat in the biggest culinary competition of the season. It's TOC like you've never seen it before. Don't miss Tournament of Champions All-Star Christmas. Series premiere November 5th at 8 only on Food Network. Stream it the next day on HBO Max.
Tuck's Takes.
Well, there certainly was a game last night, Ross. Denver, they moved to 8-2 with a gutsy 10-7 win against the Raiders.
Gutsy is one way to describe it. Honestly, Jack, I don't know many people, if any, that love football more than me. And I appreciate really good defense. And I would say that both teams played pretty darn good defense. But there was so much bad in this game. So many mistakes. Both teams had more penalties than points. Think about that. I saw some stat, I think it might have been social media, at Ross Tucker NFL, that's like the first time that's happened since 1950. More penalties than points. Ultimately, the block punt ended up being the difference because then the Broncos got the field goal. But this game was right there for the taking for the Raiders. But drops and sacks when they were in field goal range and untimely penalties ultimately did them in. Kudos to the Broncos. Nobody will care a week from now. A win is a win, but that was ugly.
Just terrible news. Cowboys defensive end Marshawn Nealon, he commits suicide at age 24.
How old are you, Jack?
24.
Yeah, I mean, just this happened, I think the news broke 10 a.m. yesterday maybe. I'm not even really sure what to say other than totally, utterly heartbreaking. The guy just scored a touchdown on Monday night. You would think he's on top of the world, but that's the key. You would think. You never really know what someone is dealing with, what someone is going through. And if anybody else out there is going through something, highly encourage you to call those hotlines, get help in any way you can.
And one other bit of news, Browns chief strategy officer Paul DePodesta is leaving to run the Colorado Rockies.
That's a big deal because it feels like DePodesta has been making a lot of the decisions in Cleveland. So that's a big deal for Browns fans that DePodesta is out. Other than that, we got Will Fries tomorrow, the starting right guard for the Minnesota Vikings on a Saturday sit-down. Don't miss it. Turn the notifications on. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. You know that it is the best gift to get anyone for the holidays. Backofficescheduler.com, human.nyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.